Richard Tarkowski's story is, in my opinion, the most interesting part of the medium's plot. She got me hooked. Even though most of it is shown to us in the form of notes and ghostly images. Dramatic events began to haunt Richard from childhood. Still, because he was unlucky to spend it during the Second World War. Richard's father, who had gone to the front, was not destined to return from him. The family was left in a desperate situation. In order to somehow survive, his mother got along with a certain man who turned out to be a tyrant, scoffed, beat his stepson and once even forced the child to defend himself with a knife. Being born right before the most terrible war in the history of mankind and having a monster stepfather is, apparently, not enough problems. Another misfortune befell Richard. The boy's neighbors hid a Jewish family, with a girl from which the boy became very good friends and, one might say, fell in love. They often met in the maze in the garden of their house. Richard brought food to Rose and drew her. And so it continued until Richard's stepfather betrayed the neighboring Jews to the Nazis. Rose was killed and it hurt Richard very deeply. So deep that it created a demon in his spirit world. Having survived all these tragic events, Richard Tarkowski continued to draw, became an artist and got a job at the university. In his craft, he achieved good success, but began to lose inspiration and his paintings were given to him more and more difficult. Until one day, he met a man named Thomas Rikovich. Thomas also managed to suffer from the Nazis. When he was only 3 years old, they killed his parents and took him away for experiments, which brought him to clinical death. After surviving it, Thomas's soul and body separated and began to live on their own. The part of Thomas that lived in reality could talk to the otherworldly version of himself, as if to another person. I returned to Richard. Having made friends with Thomas, Tarkowski learned about these abilities and listened to Thomas' stories about the other world with great interest, which returned inspiration to the artist. Thomas and Richard became good friends, not even just friends, they found in each other a son and a father, without whom both grew up. Years have passed. Tarkowski was expelled from the university and he came to his old friend, Thomas Rikovich, who had been the manager for a long time, at the Neva Hotel, which he himself designed. Thomas invited Richard to teach art to the children staying here, to which he gladly agreed. While working at a hotel, Richard befriends a nurse named Ursula. Over time, their friendship began to cease into something more. Ursula fell in love with Richard. But the trauma received in childhood has not left the artist to this day, and he broke Ursula's heart. Richard did not let go of the fear of losing someone dear to him again. In order not to be able to lose anyone, he chose not to get close to anyone. In art lessons, one of Richard's students was Thomas's daughter, Lily. She began to spend a lot of time with the teacher and began to remind him of Rose, a girl from Richard's childhood who died at the hands of the Nazis. This awakened Richard's inner demon, the child eater, and Richard raped Lily. It's not explicitly stated that he raped, but some kind of horrible act of a sexual nature is implied. As Richard himself later justified himself, this demon took over him and he did not control himself. But his father's rage was unstoppable and Thomas asked his spirit to invade the spiritual world of Tarkovka, from where the otherworldly Thomas expelled his soul and left the poor fellow Richard to live as a motionless vegetable in a wheelchair. Thank you for subscribing to the RTV Gaming channel so you don't miss new videos.